Please be seated, for this class is in session. We're going so in depth with this makeup. We are going so in depth with this one. I've broken it down into two separate parts. Starting off, we are taking the P. Louise Brow Balm and we are taking it on a spoolie, and I'm using this and brushing it up into my brows. I like to leave it where you can see the white cast, because then I know when it is settling down. I leave it on my brows for about 3 to 4 minutes, and then I will take a spatula, and taking the flat side of the spatula I will push my brow hairs up again, and I just find the coolness of the spatula also helps the product to set more. Taking a brow pencil, I am going to shape out the top of my brow into the direction that I want my eyebrows to be going, because I don't want them pointing directly upwards. I'm then going to take the pencil part and underline the bottom of my brow. I don't do the top because I just sometimes find that my angle goes a bit weird when I go to carving, so I only focus on the bottom with my lining. Next, I'm taking the P. Louise Brow Paint on a 125 angle brush. This is my favourite brush for applying the brow paint. My brush is also glued, just meaning it is extra thin, so it can really mimic the appearance of brow hairs. This is a tedious little process, and if you have good brows you probably don't even need to do this step, but I just wanted to focus on a very in-depth education today because this is my first makeup look of the year, and I want to trial the the longer version of videos, because normally my education video is about 4 to 5 minutes long, but I just wanted to try one that is actually pretty much real time, getting each step as in-depth as possible. If you were to recreate, you can save and follow along without wondering what happened next, because we have it all covered. Taking P. Louise Base Shade 1. Of course, this is the shade that I use. You might use a different shade, so grab whatever shade you use. And I'm going to begin carving my brow. I start towards the end just so I can get the arch effect or the straight effect, because I do sometimes do a straight brow, do an arch brow. It all depends on the kind of look I'm going for. I will then also just carve up the top. I will then take a fluffy brush and just brush this all along the outer edges of that base so it doesn't leave a harsh line. The base does stay tacky, but eventually it will set down, so buffing out these edges is essential because we don't want that typical white cast when it comes to our makeup later on. You can see I've just pulled up my eyebrow because when I'm taking pictures I do lift that bit of my lid just so the eye shape is a bit more elongated, so for cut creases it just looks more sharper. So I do my brows for that precise reason, especially if I'm doing a cut crease look, which we are doing today, just so I can have them pulled up. Of course you might not need to do that with your eyebrows, but I have a weird little shaped eyebrow, so it's just the way we're going. Taking the 7071 brush again from P. Louise, and we're just going to pat the base all around the lid. I do not set my base with a setting powder. That is what my eyeshadows are for, because you want to get the best out of your base. And I take my eyeshadow frequent and in small sections, so this is going to make sure that my pigment is staying put. If I'm dragging my shadow out too far, it's going to start merging with my base, which is going to start creating the patchiness that you would see in your eyeshadows. So for eyeshadow application, we are taking the World Full of Wonder palette, taking the shade Open Your Eyes on a small bullet brush. This is the Blank Canvas E23 brush. I always start my first blend with a bullet brush, which does break the rule to a lot of makeup artists and makeup educators out there. I just find, for me, this is the best technique, and these are just my techniques also. You don't have to follow my techniques because you have your own techniques, because every artist is unique to their own abilities and no two looks will ever be the same no matter how hard we try. So if you have done a P. Louise online course, I've done the courses in the past like I've said, so we take a 1, 2, 3, 4, go ahead and dip some more, so meaning we go 4 times and then we dip back into the pan, pick up more product and go again. Taking the shade Splendid on a very small bullet brush from P. Louise. This is the 159. It is one of my favourite blending brushes. The shade of Splendid is just a slight bit lighter than our first shade Open Your Eyes, and the reason I'm going small is because we want a tight blend on this, and also because Splendid is just going to add the perfect amount of blend on top of Open Your Eyes. So when we're blending we are going 50-50, 50 on the base, 50 on the previous shade. This is just going to allow us to have a seamless, flawless blend. I will repeat the 50-50 technique with our next shades, which are Experience and New Horizon. New Horizon is on a bigger, fluffier brush because this is my last shade. And once we have this shade applied, we are going back down the lather. So the lather of blends is we've gone up for all our shades dark to light, and now we're coming back down light to dark. And I've included a clip of me doing this. I do sometimes go back up again, and I might come back down again, just depending how intense you want your pigments and like how much of a blend you want on each. And again, it also goes by how much pressure you apply, how much pigment you pick up on your brush, until you are just happy with how your blend is looking. Just keep going back up and down that ladder. And for the two darkest shades, Open Your Eyes and Splendid, I picked up new brushes, which were Blind Canvas E10s. The reason I picked up new brushes is because I wanted the blend to go more seamless. That's the step I often do. I often start with bullet brushes, but then for my darkest shade, when I go back down the ladder, I will pick up a fluffier brush, just to ensure it is blended nice and seamlessly. Next, we are going to start our cuts. So we are taking the P. Louise cut carver. You can use Vaseline. I used to use Vaseline until I got cut carver. I just find cut carver is a lot easier to work with. You can use micellar water. Whatever you have, you can use. You can use concealer to map out the shape and then remove it if you want to. It's all like personal techniques. These are just the techniques that I find work. So with cut carver, we're taking small amounts of products and gliding it over the eyeshadow. This is called the Remove to Improve process, and you might think, why have you done all that shadowing just to remove it? It's to ensure we have a nice clean base for what's going on next. Otherwise, if we didn't do this, you would notice your shadow is leaking through. Like say, I'm using a paint. This is paint 0.5. I would find if I didn't do the Remove to Improve process, it wouldn't look as clean, it wouldn't look as sharp, and I would find the purple was start bleeding through the paint. So the shape we're going for is kind of like a heart shape, not a full heart shape, kind of like the top of a heart shape. I was working on a P. Louise recreation, however towards the end you will actually notice that I just switched it up lightly. If you have seen the P. Louise look originally, I did change it slightly just to adapt it to my eye shape, which is also a really good tip that I just want to mention, that even though you're doing like, you might do a recreation of someone's look, like I do a lot of P. Louise recreations, they won't always turn out the exact same because each artist has different abilities, different techniques. So like no two artists' looks will ever be the exact same. And if I was to recreate this look myself, again, it would not be the exact same again because I knew I would do things differently. So into our If Looks Could Show palette, I've used the exact same brushes and the exact same techniques, and we are taking our blue in like a little kind of like a semicircle motion, like a half moon crescent shape. We are also not putting it too close. We are leaving a small gap between the blue and the purple. This is where you might notice a mistake. I went a bit too far down my blue, so I took a small E10 and a bit of base and just buffed the blue back up a little bit, just so I could give space for my next shades. So then I went in with Interstellar from the Carnival palette from Stacey Marie and Be Perfect. And I forgot to actually film half of this, so I really do apologise. But I took the shade Conspiracy, took a bit of Luna, and just blended them back and forth because I didn't want too much of an intense blend, because I was going to be chopping a lot of this pink out with cut carver, because I did go still too low with this. I should have stopped my blue just below the brow end and then pulled my pink up. But that is just a mistake that I made when I was creating the look, but it's fine because we just worked with it anyway. I did chop a lot of this out, and if you were to recreate, you might not want to chop as much out. That's perfectly fine. Like I said, it was just trial and error. So again, with the cut carver, we're just mapping out the shape and then wrapping wipe around a spatula just to clean up the edges, because if we were to leave the cut carver where it is, you can see like the wetness to it. The products next would not apply onto it because it's like a wet, sticky consistency, and it will just remove everything you try and put on. So we always want to make sure we have this completely cleaned up. Next, I'll be etching in again with more cut carver, and this time I'll be taking a 7072 and I'll be pulling this along the front just to pull like a kind of like a cut crease shape in at the front, because I'm going to be applying a paint here. The paint I'll be taking is Ibiza mixed with white, which are P. Louise paints. The P. Louise paints are my favourite product. They are just the perfect consistency. They give you enough time to work with them. You can do so much with them, and they are very, very pigmented. They are just like my favourite product of all time when it comes to cosmetics. It's my favourite. So with the paint, we are doing a stamp small pull like motion. So I'm stamping it into where we did the cuts first, just so I can get the outline, and then I will pull it down, and I will take a fluffy brush to blend out the edges, because the paints do set matte themselves. So we want to ensure we have it blended out, otherwise we will get that harsh line we spoke about with our base at the beginning. You don't have to set your paints, but I always set my paints just to intensify the pigment. So I've set my paint with the shade New Horizon, again from the World Full of Wonder palette. We would then take more cut carver and do another cut. This is where we're going to be putting our pinks. So we're going to be taking like another kind of like a half circle shape, and we'll be applying the shades Glow Girl, Fuchsia Feels, and Extra Spicy. These are going to be in an ombre style, so I'll be taking a small shader brush to blend between each shade, so it's resembling like a seamless ombre blend, and I will be taking the same shades from my Carnival Interstellar to set these shades in place. Moving on to the next set of paints, this is where I will admit I did mess up. If I was going back doing this look, I would have kept more of the blue blend that I'm going to place on now. So that's a good point to make. If you do want to recreate, you might want to keep more of the blue. I know if I was doing this again, I'd pull my beads of paint down a little bit more and apply my blue then underneath it. The blues are Ecstasy, Salty AF and White. And then I just applied all these, and I must have forgot to do this on camera, I'm so sorry. And then I just did another carve with the cut carver. This is where we're going to take a break, so come back for part 2.